Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and this is a video request to discuss HS2, which is the new high-speed rail links that are supposed to connect north and south and provide a boost to productivity, particularly in the north of England, certainly areas around outside the southeast of England. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So back in 2012, David Cameron's government published a paper which set out the aims for HS2 3 years after the proposal was initially made by the last Labour government. It was noted that other countries were going to be using high-speed rail to boost their economies and that some had already done so, and that Britain would be losing out if it didn't join in. This was, of course, when joining in with the rest of the world wasn't considered a form of madness in this country. Ultimately, it was about ensuring that people could make the journeys they needed to, no delays, no disruptions to people getting to work and the economic cost that that would entail for the country. And the reasoning was, and still is, sound. However, like every other cack-handed attempt at governing that the Conservatives have attempted, the costs have ballooned and there are some questioning whether we should still be persisting with it. Even back in 2013, relatively early on in the project, there was disagreement as to whether or not it would help the North at all. The Chancellor at the time, George Osborne, described his vision for a northern powerhouse with HS2 providing the spark, but academics noted that improved transport links don't always benefit the deprived areas of the country. Sometimes it just makes it easier for the wealthier parts to just drain yet more talent. This is what happened in South Korea and Spain, for example. So you'd potentially end up with London and the southeast concentrating even more of the nation's productivity there, as people can live further away and still work in those areas. But the conclusion wasn't conclusive, so you'd say it was more of a risk than a certainty. There were other examples of improved transport links regenerating more deprived areas as well, so it wasn't all one way. But it was believed that the best solution, the best way to deal with this, was to link the northern towns first, give them a head start, and then connect the north with the south later. This was considered the way to maximise those potential benefits. So is that the plan? No. They're going to connect London and Birmingham first, so that London can drain away more wealth from the south before the north sees any benefit at all. Then there's the cost. So it was originally supposed to cost 30 billion, sort of sneaking maybe towards 40 billion, but those costs quickly ballooned to between 80 and 90 billion, and it could well go up higher since. Of course, the cost ballooned. Chris Grayling was involved in the project for a while, so that was bound to happen. There have also been accusations that this increased cost prediction was kept from Parliament for several years in order to suppress opposition to the scheme. They kept for the longest time saying, it was about 56 billion, when in actual fact they'd sort of known it was going to be at least 85 billion for some years. HS2 is supposed to be more environmentally sound as well. Part of the thinking is that people won't need to use planes as much. Okay, that might make sense. But what doesn't make sense is why Birmingham, if it's the first place to be connected by HS2, is massively expanding its airport. It's getting a new high-speed rail link, but it also knows it's going to have to increase its airport capacity. That doesn't quite add up there. The HS2 network doesn't just go through residential areas, necessitating the removal of people from their homes, but it goes through forests. Whole tracts of forests in the country. There's a huge environmental cost to the project that can't be overstated, and if we're not even going to get an environmental benefit elsewhere to offset it, then that seems to be working against the government's stated aims of making us carbon neutral within a generation. Not that anyone believes that that really is their aim anyway. But whether or not it does what the government want it to do, or at least say they want it to do, there's no real argument that a high-speed rail network wouldn't benefit the country. Who wants slow train journeys? But this issue of keeping costs down keeps coming up. Never mind that Brexit will cost us far more than updating our rail links. That seems to be fine, apparently. But everyone is desperate to reduce the costs of HS2, which just keep rising and rising. Almost like the government don't know how to handle a massive infrastructure project. So what's the suggested solution to the problem of cost? Apparently, it's to have the trains slow down. After all, if the network isn't high speed, it won't cost as much. But that just means you're tearing up the country for a new rail network that's no better than the one we have. All the downsides with none of the benefits. We bang a new rail network down on our countryside, further despoiling our green and pleasant land, but we don't even make it a high-speed rail link. So then who benefits? Apart from the people constructing the network, I suppose, or operating the trains. It's not like those are the sort of people that donate to the Tory party, is it? So with the new government, would there be any change in direction? So Boris Johnson has just visited Manchester and given his full support to a high-speed rail link across the Pennines between Manchester and Leeds, the so-called HS2. Plans for this, he promised, would be forthcoming in the autumn after a HS2 review. But as John McDonnell of the Labour Party pointed out, the Conservative government have made these promises time and time again about improving that infrastructure in the north and have not even begun to deliver, not even laid the groundwork out. And as for Boris Johnson personally, he promised improvements to transport in London whilst he was mayor, and none of that ever came to fruition. In fact, there's not a single promise he made that ever saw the light of day. So you have a Prime Minister with proven incompetence on such matters and a government with no real interest. After all, why would the Conservatives really care about the northern economy? Their heartlands are in the south of England, particularly the southeast. This is why the only work that's actually going on is connecting the south, even though the only agreed benefits to this scheme involve northern connections. So what do I think of it on a personal level? I think we need a modern transport infrastructure in the north. I also see no evidence that the Conservatives care about it, unless as an add-on or justification for their building works in the south. I think that it's very likely that the price we'll have to pay for HS3, which is what we really need, which, you know, would be beneficial, is HS2, which is of more doubtful benefit. I also worry that in order to keep costs down, they will probably render the entire project pointless. A bit like someone getting a job 50 miles away and so going out to buy themselves a nice reliable car, but getting a bicycle instead because it's cheaper. I seriously do worry that decisions will be made by people who never wanted the project in the first place, on the basis of what it is they do want, as opposed to the aims of the project. I don't think people are keeping the aims of the project in mind. We've seen this concept of watering down government projects before so that they become useless, and I do feel that the same issue is at play here. It's ultimately, I suppose, a problem of short-termism in British politics. A country needs long-term projects to remain modern, but politicians don't like long-term projects because they have to justify the cost, but the benefits won't be seen until long after they are out of office. But we'll see what happens, I suppose. If I had to give a very brief conclusion, I'd say that this is a project that the country needs. In other words, the stated aims are in accordance with what we need to modernise. However, the ruling party doesn't benefit from it at all, and so the aims will naturally be subverted or completely ignored. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click on the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.